In 1998, Spencer Johnson, one of my favorite authors, published a book called Who Moved My Cheese? No doubt many of you have familiarity with the writing, as it has been used in businesses, non-for-profit organizations, and even churches. For those unfamiliar with this literary work, it offers a hilarious but informative illustration about change. More specifically, change in any format, in any place, activates emotional discomfort for most, if not all people. Yet change, though undesired, is one of the most unavoidable experiences of living. Life changes, people change, times change, circumstances change. Indeed, the adage stands true. The one thing that never changes is change itself. Physiologist Ray Kelly well describes the reason people struggle with this. He said one of the problems humans face is that we cling to something as if it were permanent. By embracing the illusion of permanence, we set ourselves up for suffering. We become discouraged and afraid when this illusion is shattered and things change. Ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus remarked, "You cannot step into the same river twice." In other words, nothing is permanently the same. The river's rapid motion shapes and reshapes it so that its contents, its geological structure, and its life forms never remain in the same place or in an unchanged state. The universe itself is not without change. God so created the universe not to be idle or to remain the same, but the universe is constantly in motion. The Earth's viability depends on its ability to maintain rotation and revolution. Earth rotates on its axes and revolves around the sun. We cannot feel it, but we are currently moving through space at a rate of nearly 67,000 miles per hour. All things exist in constant motion. Idleness is contrary to the natural order of a universe that is in constant motion. Our bodies experience fatigue and muscles atrophy when subjected to long periods of idleness because we too were created to be in motion. Being in motion aligns with a universe in motion. That said, members of the body find ourselves thrust into a season of change. Our norms are challenged and our comfort zones upset. Typically, seasons rapidly come and go, but the pandemic violated this custom. It rapidly arrived, but has not made a rapid departure. It continues to alter our way of life and demands that we modify our way of worship. We have had some long and anxious months. At this point, normalcy is nothing but a memory. The surreal is now real. Believers, however, must understand that God works in the seasons of life to fulfill his purpose. When change comes about, we must understand that God is still in charge. Be careful that you do not limit his work to that which we read between Genesis and Revelation. God still works today. He did not do his best work in the life of Abraham, Moses, Peter, Paul, or other subjects in the Bible, only to leave us to feel that we somehow get lesser of his divine providence. Save Jesus Christ, God's best work can be wrought through you, through me, and through us. We must not fight against what he is doing, even when we do not always understand it. We must embrace it as divine action designed to propel us to a more progressive and productive spirituality. I believe wholeheartedly that the Almighty himself sanctioned the change in our comfort zones and has set us in spiritual motion. Change for the sake of change itself is never idealistic. Change for the better or change to become better has tremendous value. Take just a few areas of the traditional church experience to see if we cannot better appreciate God's hand in this season. Hebrews 10, verses 24 through 25, has been traditionally used to guilt believers into being in the place of worship. Pew sitters fill the pews to the satisfaction of those who have summoned them to the seats. The mere pew sitter, though, does not equate to a true worshiper, as Jesus described in John chapter 4. It is quite problematic to me that people need to identify with a physical place to feel connected to God. Clearly, this ignores Christ's teaching that explicitly forbids worship being defined by a place. He said it is in spirit and in truth. True worship happens when a worshiper reverences God and recognizes both the worshiper's unworthiness and at the same time his privilege to come before God. True worship produces awe, respect, fear, adoration, love, and submission to God who is being worshiped. True worship is not about passing around babies, not about passing notes and making judgments about people who enter the worship assembly. True worship is about lowering oneself and exalting one's God. True worship rises above mere form and formality and ascends to the level of absorbing spiritual nurture to strengthen the worshiper for his human experience. True worshipers do not critique the preacher, the song leaders, and the other participants in the worship as if that worshiper has a right to waste time in judging others. No, in humble fashion, he lowers himself as the worshiper understands that he alone bears guilt before his righteous and holy God. Worship has been taken for granted for too long by too many people. Folks have been going to church for years, and some of them, maybe not you, but some of them have not worshiped God acceptably, though they have occupied a space in a place. The absence of the traditional service is creating in the hearts of worshipers a much needed hunger and desire for God unlike anything else in recent history. He has ushered in change, but change for the better. Another awesome change budding in the hearts of believers is the better understanding of fellowship versus membership. Romans chapter 12, verse 5 teaches that we are members in one body and members one of another. Why have churches morphed into fashion shows, social clubs, entertainment centers, political circles, and member factions? Why do members have long-standing dislikes of one another? Could it be that we have been satisfied with membership at the expense of fellowship? At the heart of fellowship lies the idea of a common bond. The Spirit of God unites us in purpose, but the body now suffers from a spirit of divisiveness, discord, and division. Whereas the pandemic separated our physical bodies, evil spirits separated many who bit and devoured one another, long before the physical separation. The Lord knows what He is doing. Look at how this pandemic has created an extended fellowship across this country. Without this pandemic, we likely would not be on tonight's call. Fellowship seeks to esteem other better than self. Fellowship extends nurture, care, concern, and acts in the best interest of those with whom we are spiritually bound. Now we are seeing a resurgence of this type of fellowship. Though we teleconference and other churches use other technology formats, believers enjoy more fellowship now than in pre-COVID days. And then we wonder why God would allow this type of change. Across this country, by way of technology, more importantly, by way of receptive hearts, believers are bonding, are sharing, are connecting, and are fellowshipping beyond the typical membership experience. Whereas some lament or cry about the change from our norms, I welcome this change. I see God working in a mighty way, and the church will prevail. Abraham Maslow rightly said, in any given moment, we have two options: to step forward into growth or to step back into safety. John F. Kennedy noted, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. Mr. Maslow, I want to step forward into growth. President Kennedy, I do not want to miss the future. Beloved, what will you do? As for me and my house, we will gladly embrace this direction from God as we gladly accept and welcome the changes.